Hey everyone, so now that What If has been out for almost a week now, I figured a lot of people have made their final lasting decisions on what they thought of the show and what they thought of the episodes, and I felt like we should officially do the same thing on this channel. So we are going to be doing a tier list for each 9 of the episodes in chronological order. First off, we have the Peggy episode, the Captain Carter episode right here. Very fun. It was a very fun watch, especially as like the introduction to the what if concept. I thought it did a pretty good job of like establishing like what the show is going to be, taking this one character, what happens if they, switch places with this other character. So it was really cool seeing Peggy take on the whole entire plot of Captain America the First Avenger. That being said, this entire episode is sort of just Captain America the First Avenger recapped, but with a Peggy spin. So that is cool, but I'm gonna have to give it a B just because, you compare it to some of the other episodes where they're just completely unique stories. And this is basically the First Avenger with Peggy. Still super cool though, but obviously not the best. Next up, we have the T'Challa Star-Lord episode right here. I actually really loved this one, especially, considering the passing of Chadwick Boseman. That's unfortunate, and it really sucks, and it really makes this episode that much more emotional. But looking at the episode just by itself, it is a fun little adventure. You get to see friendly Thanos, which was ridiculous, and it's its own little heist type storyline, which is cool. But I'm gonna have to give this a B just because it's not as grand scale. It's a Marvel stories, what ifs, they can be as big as you can imagine them to be, and they do end up getting that big, which is when we're gonna start ranking them a little higher. Now, the what if the Avengers died episode, where we have evil Hank Pym at the end, and we sort of go through all the Avengers dying for this mysterious reason, and it's later revealed that it's Hank Pym. But this episode is gonna have to be an A for me. Actually, maybe an S tier. It's like right there, just because it goes back to these familiar places, but it doesn't just retell that story, if that makes sense. It sort of takes you to this location, but gives you an entirely different scenario. For example, the whole sequence with Bruce Banner and Natasha's there, like Natasha being there at the events of the Incredible Hulk, like that's like such a cool idea and a concept. Like, yeah, she was around then, she could have been there if she needed to be, and in this story she was. And it was also really disturbing seeing the Hulk like just like blow up. And I know there's so much more in all these episodes that we can't go every single detail, but I feel like this is one of the episodes that I enjoyed more. Now we have the evil Doctor Strange. I actually did not like as much. I know a lot of people liked it, right? But for me, this one was kind of just it felt fillery, if that makes sense. And I like the concept, like what if Doctor Strange went bad? But I feel like it leaned too much into the whole Groundhog's Day. Like he's trying to save Christine over and over and nothing's working, and he's sort of going insane. And what's funny is the only reason I remember Christine's name is how bad Benedict Cumberbatch sounded as himself. I saw a lot of people say his voice acting in that episode was so emotional, but for me personally and my girlfriend, we were like laughing at some of the voice lines from Benedict Cumberbatch. Like my girlfriend didn't even know it was him. I knew it was him, but when he's like, "Oh, Christine, no, Christine, don't." And I know, like, watching it for the first time, you may get teary-eyed, but like, go back and watch that. It was not the best. I'm giving it a C. I'm sorry. Don't kill me. But the next one, this is What If right here. This is like What If at its finest. I don't even have to debate this. Zombie episode, S tier, super fun. Obviously Spider-Man's in the episode, so I'm kind of biased, but it takes this team that you would never expect to be a team, and that's the funnest aspect of it, seeing these other characters that we've never seen interact with each other on screen before. Spider-Man talking with Hope Van Dyne, talking with Mark Ruffalo, Bruce Banner, talking with Paul Rudd, Ant-Man. It's so funny. I think of the actors' names first before I think of like their civilian name in series. The one thing I didn't like about this episode was Vision being a complete idiot, dooming that whole entire Avengers team. And what sucks is that these episodes were supposed to be longer, but because of COVID, they could only do so much. So I can only imagine how cool, this episode would have been if we got more time to see, like the Avengers fighting off the zombie army before they get zombified, if that makes sense. Because they're sort of just zombified off screen. It shows them and then they immediately like lose to the zombies, and it's like, those are the Avengers, like they should put up more of a fight. So that is something that I wish we saw more of. But regardless, like that episode by far is the one I think of first when I think of this season. All right, and for the Killmonger episode, I'm gonna have to say this was probably a D for me. I really like the character. Obviously, he's one of the best Marvel villains that we've had, but I just didn't like how dumb they made Tony Stark seem. You know, I realized that the Tony Stark in this episode is pre-Iron Man, so obviously he's not the best person. The concept itself is cool, but if you go back and watch this episode, it kind of ends abruptly. Like the story's not done, and the showrunners have said that they're probably not going to go back to a lot of these stories in season 2. So like these little stories, they're contained, and some of them might not ever be continued, and that's fine. But I feel like if you're gonna make this little story, it should have some sort of finale. And from what I remember, this episode didn't really have that good of an ending. And that's another thing. Like, if I can't remember the episode that well, it probably wasn't that great, to me at least. Again, this is just my opinion. Your list may be completely different from mine, but you know, you're entitled to your opinion. The Party Thor episode was pretty fun. It wasn't S or A, I'll give you that. It was sort of just a filler episode until we got to the Ultron stuff, which is fine, but I'm gonna have to give it a C just because I remember watching this episode and waiting for like the cool stuff to happen. The party stuff it was like, yeah, you know, Thor's having a good time, but I felt like we were just wasting time. There was a lot of just dead space in this episode, I feel. And the Captain Marvel Thor fight was pretty cool. Some pretty cool visuals in that episode. It was just strange how Thor's motivation for cleaning up his mess is that his mom's gonna get mad at him, and that's pretty silly. It's pretty cartoonish, but why do we care, if that makes sense, compared to like Marvel Zombies, where the whole world is done. Like, it's done, and you feel automatically the weight of that world. This one just felt like there was no real danger. Frost Giant Loki was pretty cool though. It was pretty funny getting to see Loki in his true form pretty much. And also there was a lot of Easter eggs in the crowd, the party crowd. I'm pretty sure we had like Howard the Duck, we had Nebula, Korg, a bunch of just characters in the background, but those little references don't necessarily mean the show or the episode is, you know, better. Okay, so final two, I just finished explaining all of it and it didn't save, so we're here doing it again. Episode 8 right here is when we're introduced to the idea of what if Ultron won in Avengers Age of Ultron, and I really like this episode, so I put it as an A. It's not necessarily like, you know, S tier level. I enjoyed getting to see Natasha and Clint go on another little adventure together, and I thought it was, you know, pretty cool how they're like two of the normal Avengers. Like, they don't have any superpowers, but somehow they're the ones surviving. And I think just showcasing how powerful this version of Ultron is was pretty terrifying. Like, this is when we see him just slice Thanos in half instantly. We see Thanos come through his portal and it's like, oh my god, it's Thanos, we're about to see some freaking big battle, and then just that was like so cool. It was such a awesome moment, and I really liked that. And then we got to see Infinity Ultron face off against the Watcher, and we got to see how powerful the Watcher is, and this is when he finally interferes. And there's some pretty funny moments in this episode where he's watching Clint and Natasha go through some files, and he really wants to help them, but he can't. And yeah, I really like this episode. Next up, we have the final episode. I was actually choosing between B and C. I was a little bit more generous and gave it a B just because it has a lot to live up to, but unfortunately it doesn't. There's not enough time in this one little episode to conclude the whole season of this show, and that's pretty unfortunate, but we still had some really cool moments. And the final battle, although I do think it was kind of rushed and the team felt a little forced, you can't really blame them. Again, this season was supposed to have longer episodes, but due to, you know, world events, didn't happen. But I thought it was kind of funny, and, you know, it was like whatever. But Doctor Strange, evil Doctor Strange, giving everyone like a protection spell, it kind of made him like the only really important player, I would say, just because any other set of heroes could have been there as long as Doctor Strange gave them that protection spell. And it was pretty cool seeing him go through these different versions of monsters that he's become to fight off against Ultron. I like how the one way to beat this Ultron isn't with an Infinity Stone or any of that. It's just by, you know, shooting him with an arrow with Zola in it. I thought that was cool, and Natasha being able to shoot that arrow for Clint, I thought that was cool. Oh yeah, and previous episode, I really liked getting to see the opposite of what if Clint sacrificed himself versus Natasha. I thought that was really cool, and there's a really cool visual, a shot where he's falling down and he's shooting an explosive arrow into all the Ultron bots. But yeah, like with this last episode, there was some really cool moments, and getting just to see the multiverse actually happen like right in front of our eyes. Different versions of heroes from alternate universes coming together to fight in one battle. Like that is, I mean, that's awesome. It just sucks that they really do have to cram it all into 35 minutes. And I do think that the showrunners had a really difficult decision to make if they wanted, all of these stories to, cross over in the end. Because they could have easily just made every single one of these episodes one contained story. And initially, that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought Captain Carter, Killmonger, all these stories that would never really, add up to one main crossover. I think they recognized there's a lot more opportunity and a lot more hype in a crossover. I mean, this whole franchise is built on crossover events, so yeah, it made sense that they would want their final episode to be that. I just wish if any of these episodes were longer, it was the last episode where we get to see a longer battle and just more of a build up to the final battle. But again, I've brushed over a lot of crucial details in these episodes because there's just so much to talk about. The bar for Marvel is set so high that, even D is still pretty good just compared to all the other ones. It's lower tier, but these are all really good episodes. They're all really entertaining, and they all each have super unique takes on a Marvel universe, and I really can't wait to see what they do in season 2. And this was kind of them testing the waters even more for the multiverse and saying, like, are people really on board with this, and like, are people okay with this? And yeah, people, like, they get it now. Spider-Verse happened, we got Loki with the multiverses branching out and all that, and they've kind of just been building this little road to Spider-Man No Way Home. That's going to be where all the eyes are going to be on the multiverse. I'm actually looking at it now, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I should put Doctor Strange at B just because of how much of a role he ends up playing in the end. It's a really interesting concept, and it's dark, and it was really interesting seeing the Watcher just let that whole entire universe die, because that's what he did. And I think it might be a little hypocritical of the Watcher to kind of just choose when he wants to intervene, like which universe he wants to save. This is a whole entire universe that this guy was responsible for destroying, and the Watcher just stood by. Versus when all of the universes are at stake, now the Watcher wants to intervene. I'm just saying, a little hypocritical, but he did take an oath, but then he ends up breaking that oath. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I would love for you to leave your own tier list in the comments. I'm really curious to see how different yours is from mine. And yeah, guys, I hope you have an amazing day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.